Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury, host on Archery Talk 101. I have Ryan on the line with us, and obviously he's a passenger in a car, so where he's at, it's kind of dark, so we may not be able to see him too well, but we'll at least get to talk to him and just kind of talk about what his adventures are in archery, and we'll just kind of have a lot of fun talking archery. So welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Tervort. I got my start in the Midwest. I now live in Colorado, but I got into bow hunting when I was a kid there, and completely fell in love with it. Haven't been able to put the bow down since. I was a guide for a while, and now I've been on a couple other TV shows. Now I actually own a partner owner in my own TV show, Extreme Backcountry Outdoor Adventures. Our big thing is getting youth, veterans, and everybody out hunting. We love hunting ourselves, but we also, a big part of what we do is taking others hunting.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. It's always nice when you get to take a new person hunting and get to watch all the excitement of their first hunt with them, and it brings you back to your first hunt and your first kill. All that is just exciting watching somebody new go through that and experience it.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, I get, like I said, I love every minute of it, but being able to take somebody new out, like a kid I took out last year, I mean, he shot a small buck, but it was his first big game animal. And, we were all high five and cheering. He was trying to reload his gun afterwards, dropping shells all over the place. And it's like, we had to talk afterwards. It wouldn't have mattered if it was a 200-inch deer laying over there versus what it was. It meant the same,
Right. Yeah, so we'll get a little bit more into some of those hunts because those sound like some interesting stories. But how did you first pick up your first bow, and what made you start that?
Um, well, actually, when I got it as a Christmas gift one year, I hadn't really, didn't really have anybody in my family that archery hunted a whole lot. Um, but I got a bow as a Christmas gift the one year, and I'm like, well, hey, I'll give it a try. And from first couple of arrows, I just fell in love with it. I think I was like 9 years old when I really got my first hunting bow. Of course, you always have the kids' bows you play around with before then.
Right.
But I had my first hunting bow then, and got good with it, started working with it. Took me a few years before I got my first deer. I think I was 13 or 14 when I got my first deer with a bow, and uh, I've never looked back since. Like I said, then I started researching into new technology into bows, and bought my first one myself. And then I've just kind of gone forward with it and looking through the different technologies. Got into arrow design. Now, like I said, my big thing is being able to keep up the speed and still keep an arrow that's performing great. And so that's kind of my passion now, is just being able to tweak things and make it perform the way I need to in the field.
Yeah, that's always is kind of the interesting part. Sometimes you can, play around stuff, try different arrows, try different weights. And a nice thing about, when you fletching your own is you can make it look like however you want. You
Yep.
can put wraps on it, you can do your own special colors, whether it be in veins or feathers. I'm more of a traditional on the fletching. I still use feathers. I started at feathers in the 60s, and I just like shooting feathers. But there's so many different options out there for those that shoot in veins. When I
Oh
look at
yeah.
those, like, when I first started, when plastic veins started coming out, you pretty much didn't have much choice. And they weren't very flexible either. They were really hard and brittle.
Yeah, they're real hard and brittle. Like I said, I remember, the first carbon arrows when they came out, the setup on them, it was, the glue didn't hold great on them like it did on the other arrows, because none of the other stuff had changed yet. It was just the
Right.
shaft was changed. And it actually cost me a big buck. Had one that the glue didn't hold, and vein came off in flight, and ended up there, just dove and slapped him in the side.
Oh,
And so, seeing the difference of how things have come along, the adhesives and the change of knowing what you need for the different shafts is all different. I shoot recurve as well. I've never gotten into big game too much with it, but I do a lot of small game. I'll go pheasant hunting with my recurve or rabbit hunting and things like that.
yeah, that's kind of challenging to go after a pheasant with a bow and arrow.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Again, when I was guiding in Iowa, and the guys I was taking out, they're like, "Well, why don't you ever pack?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm here to run the dogs, take you guys." And this one group one day, they're like, "Well, we want to see you shoot something." I'm like, "All right, fine. I'll." So the next morning, I show up with my recurve, and they all looked at me, "Huh?" I'm like, just don't worry about it. I ended up getting my limit that day as well with the recurve.
Yeah, sometimes I have trouble doing that good with just my shotgun,
Of course, that was back in the day when Iowa had high pheasant numbers. And, well, living there and watching the decline, it was really sad. I know they're coming back now, but it was really sad to see where they're everywhere to pockets here and there or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know here in Nebraska, there when I was a kid, there was, a lot of pheasants go out, and you hardly ever see many turkeys. And now I don't hardly see any pheasants, but I see turkeys in the cities and everything.
Yep.
I work in the city, and we're about 103rd between Pacific and Dodge. There's a place there that I see turkeys. One day the traffic all stops, like, why does everybody stop? Then I notice inside turkeys are moseying across the road, and everybody stopped, let the turkeys follow, go across the road. And it's I kind of remember a lot of pheasant hunting when I was a kid, but now I'd rather go sit in a tree stand for deer than I would walk fields and walk fields and walk fields and maybe get my 3 pheasants.
Right. Yeah, it is a lot of work, but yeah, definitely was quite a change for me for the hunting difference coming from the Midwest out here. I mean, I was born in Nevada, so I grew up a little bit of it, but got used to the tree stand hunting and that stuff. And then coming back here, where pretty much everything's spot and stock, which I really enjoy. Like I said, there's little thrill better than spot and stock for mule deer in the high country.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, a lot got to be in shape, a lot of walking up and down them mountains. And
Oh
they
yeah.
it's not an old guy sport.
But yeah, I got one good. I've got a few mule deer, but I got one really good one I killed a couple years ago with my bow. It's the 180-inch full velvet.
Yeah, I've never shot one in full velvet. I've never really been out when I was hunting and doing it, because generally here in Nebraska, by the time September rolls around, they're pretty much not in velvet anymore, and so we don't really
Yeah,
see much of that.
yeah, we get usually it's like the first 2 weeks of season, they'll still be in velvet, and then the rest of the season, yeah, they're out. But we usually always are hunting that first week or so. So we get a chance. They're usually, like I said, that year my son killed one, like actually the day after I killed mine, and his was out of velvet, but mine was in. So it's just kind of a depending on the individual buck and where you're at.
Yeah, I know I don't like to get out real early season. And now's our starts September 1st. You start the 15th, and it's still sometimes too hot. And when it's that hot, it's kind of hard to get out there, because if you don't get to the deer right away, it's not going to be any good. And I hate killing one and letting it go to waste because I couldn't get to it quick enough.
Right. No, that's totally it. And that's, usually we've had a few warm times here, but usually where we're hunting at, we're getting down into at least the 20s and 30s at night and only getting up, 50s to 70s during the day. But we've had some times where it's down in the teens and only getting into the 20s or 30s for a high during that time of year.
Yeah, yeah. And then you got time. If you can't find it that night, you can always go back next morning. And
Yep.
if you have a morning hunt, you've got all day you can look for it if you have to. And I know when it's getting up into the 80s and 90s, even if you get one in the morning, if you don't find it within an hour or two, a good chance it's going to start spoiling already. And
Exactly.
so I kind of don't like to go on those hot days.
Yep.
It's no fun. I've been out there and have mosquito suits on and every place the mesh it hits your skin. You get a mosquito bite all over your knuckles, and yeah, yeah, that's no fun doing that. But hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, right, to get out there.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of like our pronghorn season. It's in August and goes into September, and yeah, there's times on that it's hot. I mean, there's been a few times, yeah, we just went ahead and shut it down just because to try and kill something and get to it and get it taken care of in time just isn't going to happen. So if we can't beat it where we're right by the truck and got ice available, we'll just go ahead and nope, let's let it cool down in the evening before we head out after them.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the thing you got to think about too, is not just the fact that you're you're miserable, but you hate to spend all that time and then kill an animal and then have it spoiled by the time you get to it. And it's just
Yep.
better to, like I said, go back in the evening when it'll cool off, and you do have some time. A little harder to
Yeah.
find in the dark, but so tell us about some of those hunts that you've taken people on. I know you've probably got some really cool stories about some of the hunters that came in there and their experiences.
Yeah, like I mean, a lot of them I do are youth hunts, and one really one I to remember was a couple years ago. The guy had reached out. He had a place for his son to hunt, and it fell through, and he was getting berated on the Facebook groups asking, hey, does anyone help me out? And I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, don't worry about those other guys. Come out to my place, we'll talk. So I invited him and his son out, and it was like, oh, about a week before opening day. And we're sitting there at the house, and because I had access to all the property behind me, and we're glassing, and of course the whole herd comes up across. The two bucks are fighting and chasing, and the kid's eyes are the size of saucers watching all this. Dad, he turns to me, he goes, well, all right, what's it going to cost me to get my son on here? I'm like, opening morning, sign the waiver for the filming, and we'll get him set. And he's like, you serious? I'm like, yeah, no problem. You guys be here. This time we'll have coffee and breakfast ready. And like I said, we'll go sit on the hill there and we'll wait for them to come out. So that's what we did. Opening morning comes and we slip out we knew where the main herd was. They were on the neighbor's property that we couldn't hunt, but we knew where they were going to go to. So we just got up on the hill, sat there, just watched the whole herd come across. And the kid was getting a little worried because a couple of smaller bucks and he didn't get a shot. We had a decoy out, and one of them came charging in at the decoy, and he didn't have a shot. And he got frustrated. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, there's still three good bucks that are sitting over there. Let's just relax, sit here. And finally, the last big buck, he crossed and came up, stopped at 125 yards, and gave him the shot he needed. And he took it, drilled him, and the only bad thing is that he didn't. His dad told him that he needed to hold high because he was sighted in at 100 yards, and I was like, he didn't hear me say no. It isn't going to change that. So hit him a little high, but he still hit vitals, and we were able to get blood trail and trailed him up, and we're able to find him. He ended up being a nice mid 70s inch pronghorn for the kid.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's always nice when you get somebody like that, and you kind of blanked out when after if you said what's going to cost me, and then next thing come back and sign the waiver. So you kind of blanked out that in there. So fill us in on what we kind of missed there.
Oh, it's just that he asked me, what is it going to cost? I told him nothing. Just be here opening morning and sign the waiver for the filming. And that's it. I don't. Like I said, I used to be a guide in Iowa, but I'm not here, and so there's no charge for nothing. I'm just about getting them out there and getting them the opportunity.
And then it gives you good content for your videos.
Exactly. That's actually how that whole hunt is actually one of our episodes that we have on our YouTube page. So
Yeah, and we can actually take a look at your page here, if I remember which one I put it on. There we go. Let me close this out. And for those listening, I'm going to go to his Facebook page, Extreme Backcountry Outdoor Adventures TV show. And for those watching, you're going to have the opportunity to actually see his Facebook page. And here's his Facebook page. And I'll let Ryan go ahead and kind of talk us through your page.
Yeah, so this year, though, that's our header with all our sponsors. We really do a lot for our sponsors. We've kind of taken things back to old school where we don't ask for free. We see the sponsorships as a partnership. And so our most of our sponsors give us a really great discount in exchange for the content we get and the promotion we do. We've had a few sponsors that we did enough for them that they came back to us and were like, hey, you know what, you guys are doing enough for us, we want to give you free stuff. And so, you know, we're taking it back to that old school, how things used to be where, you know, it wasn't about paying tons of money or everything demanding free. It was you earned what you got. And that's what we
Right.
want to see this go back to. And so we go on there, like I said, we post on there. We have posts from all of our staff members. We have staff members from all across the country. And so as they're out hunting, they send us, me, mainly I'm the one that runs the Facebook. So they send me over the content and I put together the ads and our posts and put them up. One of our other guys, our lead guys, we send all the footage to him, and right now he's doing all our editing and that stuff for us and getting the videos put out for YouTube. And so that way we can have content. Like I said, we got a few this fall. We got some pretty good episodes coming up. It's still on the editing room floor, getting some stuff put together. So most of our stuff is all still from turkey season, but we'll have here shortly some new episodes coming out.
Yeah, it takes a while to edit some of the videos. I know I create videos on YouTube, and you know what I'm finding is if you shoot for an hour, it takes you an hour and a half to edit the video.
Oh,
So
exactly. Because you got to go through and find those gym little pieces that work and then seam everything together. And, you know, we've had all our staff, we're telling them the best thing to be able to film in is MP4 format.
right.
Because all the editing software, it works directly with them. So you don't have to compress and transfer and do anything. It just goes straight into the system. It seems right together.
Yeah, and that's what I use as well. I record in MP4, and then
Yeah.
I use a program called DaVinci Resolve to edit my videos, and
That's
it's
actually what
amazing.
we use too. Yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm using the free version, which has awesome ways to edit videos. And the one thing I did find is if you use that compressed format when you record them, the free version doesn't work on them. So you just
Nope,
turn
it
that
doesn't. It
off,
does
and
not like
yeah, it does not
Nope.
like it. In fact, the media player doesn't even like it. It says, "Oh, you need to add this add-in for 99 cents." Like, wait a minute,
Right.
why did this start? You know, and all of a sudden I changed that on my phone. I was going through looking, so oh, we changed that, and then all of a sudden it broke everything. So I figured out how to do it, and I changed it back. And so that's one of the things that I learned when I'm editing them. And for those looking at creating some content for YouTube, hey, that program, you use it, I use it. I've been using it for a couple of years now, and I'm about ready to get the paid version just
Yeah,
because
the paid
it's
version
cheap.
has a lot more little things you can do, overlays you can do, in picture, secondary views, all that stuff that you can do with it.
Yeah, and I'm getting now where I'm kind of curious about trying some of that. We've got another camera. I'm using my phone as well as we got another digital camera recording on, and I'd like to be able to do some of that stuff. And
Yep.
and as you go along, you get kind of tired of just doing plain video with just there. And then I started using just the little fading in and out. And now I'm starting to
I
use some more features, like the circles of the crosses, or the fading in and out, and all kinds of different stuff, and putting text on. And it's kind of fun doing all that. And as you grow and just make different videos. And now
Yep.
I don't do that for the podcast. The podcast goes up how we do it. If we say something that we didn't like, well, it's in there. I don't edit the
It's in there. Yep.
podcast. So that's just a raw video. Now I have edited a couple. It's because I accidentally hit the stop recording and had to start recording again. So then I had to merge
Yep.
them together.
You
But
have to seam
that's
them together. Yep.
yeah. And then I'll upload a YouTube thumbnail, and they're all the same. They kind of look like my background here, except it's the wording across the top, is all there to give the episode number, and then down below it'll be, like the interview with whoever I'm interviewing at the time, or whatever the podcast is about. So, it's kind of fun. So, anybody's thinking about doing something like that, hey, do it. It's a lot of fun. And don't worry about making mistakes. You know, my first video was, yeah, probably not very good, but they all start that way. Nobody watches your first video anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, then the other good hunt I had was this year actually. I got to take he's actually on our staff now. We haven't had him to our staff, but I actually took a disabled veteran on his first ever elk hunt. And unfortunately we didn't get one. Uh, but you know, we still had a lot of fun, had a great week. A couple days in, we actually got the elk bugling, and I had a real nice bull coming in, full bugling. And you know, I had to try not to laugh because I had him set up down in front of me, and I'm setting up the cameras, and I'm calling, and this bull bugles back, just boom, fire, fire, right back at us. And he's trying to get an arrow out. He's shaking so bad that he about dropped his arrow out of his bow. And you know, and then because he could hear this bull, we could hear him walking. And then he got to some thick stuff that was just below us and kind of skirted up around us. Well, we ran into some other hunters and we told them where we were going, and they said, okay, yeah, we'll stay away from you. Well, they didn't. They heard all the commotion of me calling to this bull and him answering, and they tried to sneak in. And when that bull tried to cut around us, they bumped him and sent him right down past us, messed it all up. But, you know, talking with him afterwards, he says, you know, because even though I didn't get a shot, he goes, that was one of the most exciting things I've ever had in the woods, because that, you know, could hear that bull walking and bugling back to the call, and just knowing they're just waiting for the clearing to be able to get a shot.
Yeah,
And, you know,
that's
but you know,
you brought it. You brought an interesting point that, you know, us as hunters, you know, if we know somebody's in an area, no matter how much excitement's going on, you know, show respect for the other guy, because you wouldn't want them to come walking in on you. You know, let them go, and you know, there may be more than one coming in, so you know, let that one go, and you know, help each other out. And that's one of the things that we need to make sure that, you know, if you're out there and you know somebody's hanging in the area, that just say, hey, you know, if you get one down, let me know. I'll help you track it or help you haul it out, you know, whatever. Just
exactly. You
kind
know,
of
the camp across from us. You know, we had a deal that, yeah, if any one of us got something, like, hey, come back to the camp, grab us, we'll help you pack it out. You know, they were really cool guys. But you know, these guys weren't. They were from the other side of the mountain and weren't anywhere around us. But yeah, so you know, but it happens. It's public land. It's something you have to deal with. It
right.
sucks. You wish more people would have that common respect, but a lot of people don't. Unfortunately, we run into it a lot here. I mean, that people just try to do that. They'll try to run in it because they've not had any luck, and they get frustrated. And you know, they're hunting the same area, and you're having luck, and so they, you know. But it's, yeah, like you say, it's common courtesy to just go the other way, find another one.
Yeah, there's now, I know one time I was hunting some public land, and where I was set up, they were getting down to me too late at night. It was after shooting time. And I knew this coming in from the north down. So I said, okay, I'm gonna move up the north end. I want to be in my tree stand by 4 o'clock, because it's coming down right about 5:30 or so. So I figure I'll be in there just fine. I got up in my tree stand about 4:10. Here comes this deer down road, kind of walking fast down the road. And I made my shot, ended up not making a good shot on it, but still got the deer later. Well, what was happened was some kids were out walking around up further north from me and kicked the deer up a little bit early. You know, so you know, I was in my tree stand 10 minutes and it come by, and I was able to get the
Yep.
deer. You know, that's another whole story in itself, because you know, I didn't make a good shot on it, but we still got it. The next night we come back and found it. You know, we found our lump of
Yeah.
snow with, you know, the deer with a pile of snow on it. So it was basically a lump of snow we looked for, and we found it. But yeah, sometimes that, you know, people walking around can actually help you out. You know, so
Yeah.
that's the thing, you know, never really got worried about people walking around. It's if they're out there making racket and stuff, you know, just messing around, you know, while they're staying in your area, you know, or if you're in an area where they're shooting shotguns your direction, you know, that's a little different story. But you know, sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, they might be bedded down, and you kick them up and they turn around and run behind you to see what it was, could send them right to you. So
Yep.
just because somebody's moving around doesn't mean it's going to mess up your hunt.
Well, actually, that exact thing brings up my wife's first deer she killed with a bow. Um, we were hunting an area. We actually had our little 4-year-old with us. Now he's 17 now, but we're going down the little trail through the mountain, and he's bebopping ahead of us, and all of a sudden he stops and he's pointing. I look, and there's a deer down on the edge of this Quakies and on the edge of a meadow. And so we go up to the edge, and I range. It's right at the edge of her range, but she goes and tries a shot. And she had mentioned something to me about what about the people. Well, I thought she meant they were down on the road because we weren't that far off the road, and people would hike the road. I'm like, no, there's no risk to anybody, nothing. Well, she shoots the deer. Just as she shoots, we hear this guy off to the side that I didn't see. He was like off to the right. Him and his wife were taking pictures of the deer, and he yelled. Oh yeah, he yells at us. I'm like, I'm like, hey, you don't want to see that? Don't be on the mountain during hunting season.
Right. And they probably weren't even wearing orange, were they?
No, we didn't even, like I said, they had hiked clear up. We were not even on any hiking trail, nothing. We were just up on the side hill of the mountain, and they had from down below seen this deer and decided to hike up in from the side to take pictures. And where we came in, we were actually at a different angle, so they were clear off to our right, and so didn't see them. But yeah, but it's like, so if you don't want to be seeing that stuff, then stay off the mountain during hunting season, because it's going to happen.
Well, that's the way things go. If you're out there during hunting season, expect to see people out hunting, and
yep.
And if you don't want to see an animal get killed, well, stay out of there at hunting season. There's plenty of times to go in there the rest of the year to look at elk or deer or antelope or whatever. Go out there and see the wildlife, and that's sometimes that's the good part of the hunt. Sometimes is what you get to see in the forest. Especially
right.
Around here, in the Midwest, you're from Nevada and Iowa, and I'm in Nebraska. Sometimes you sit on that tree stand, and the best hunts aren't even when you get to shoot a deer.
Oh, I've seen some weird stuff sitting in the tree stand come through the woods. And then, when we were just hunting, I took my wife out to the eastern part of Colorado this last weekend, because we have whitetail out there. And so she drew a whitetail only tag out there. And we were sitting on a public ground, and there was a couple food plots there. And I know they're going to hit it. We just had a big snowstorm come through. But we're sitting there just a little bit before the deer came in and said something pop out. Actually, this great big bobcat pop out and bebop through the field. He had no idea we were there. So I sat there and filmed him as he went along, twitching his tail and looking around. That was, stuff like that. You don't get to see them otherwise because they'll hide. But when they don't know you're there, they think everything is just normal. They're going to hop out and just do their thing.
Yeah, you just never know it. And, when you're in full camo and the squirrels come by, they can't figure out what you are.
Nope.
I had one as I'll shoot squirrels sometimes, if nothing's really going on, but I don't shoot them when they're up in the tree. But I was up in the tree stand, and here comes this squirrel out. He hops on a branch down below me. So, when my arrow goes through it, it'd be in the ground, not good on the broadhead, but hey, so I reached in my pocket, use the Velcro, pull out my wallet, pull out the card. I want to make sure hunting season was open because, I wasn't paying attention to anything besides deer season. So it's like, oh, squirrel season's open. Put it back in my pocket, drew my bow back. The whole time the squirrel's looking at me, and I shoot. He's looking at me until the arrow goes through it. Dinner that night, of course, but then another time I was walking through a field. Squirrel's on top of a fence or fence post. The other side is great big tall grass, and I go up and I'm waving my arms, and he's just looking at me. Didn't care. I just kept walking on because I'm not gonna waste an arrow. If I can't at least recover the arrow, I'm not gonna shoot that into a big tall grass field.
Right.
I'll never find it. Squirrel wasn't worth that. Now for a deer, that'd have been a little bit better reward for the loss of the arrow.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that on that hunt with that veteran, we were sitting there on a drainage where there had been elk moving through, and we decided we were going to sit for a little while. And I saw this marten come by us a little bit, so I did a little at him, and he came running right in. He came in like 5 feet from us.
Oh yeah.
They're neat. They're like a big weasel, but we see them all over here in the mountains. They're real
Yeah.
curious to that. So if you make any type of little mouse noise like that, they'll come right up to you.
Oh yeah. I guess I never really seen anything like that, but I've seen possums, I've seen squirrels, I've had birds land on the tree in front of me. I could have kicked them. That's how close they were. And there's once you'll get like a raccoon climbing up your tree, and it's like, okay, go away, dude. I don't want you climbing over the top of me and all of a sudden being on me and getting scared because I moved or something.
Oh, I had a raccoon once hunting there in Iowa, sitting on my tree stand, and they there was a knot hole in the tree behind me,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't even think anything of it. I figured, oh, probably squirrel one running there once in a while. Well, I'm sitting in the tree. All of a sudden, a little paw comes out of that hole and grabbed my shoulder. There's a raccoon in the tree. I about
Oh
fell out of my stand because
yeah. All of a sudden, Paul comes up and grabs you. I just see that where you're sitting, all of a sudden this, just kind of watching, imagining this, and this paw comes out and reaches over and touches your shoulder.
yeah, I don't what he didn't know. I think it was what he didn't know what it was. It was in front of the hole that he could just kind of see through. So he's just reaching out to see what was out there. Grabbed a hold of my shoulder. Yeah, I about went over the end of the stand.
Not expecting anything to come out from behind you and grab your shoulder.
No.
Yeah, I know it's kind of interesting. One night I've told the story a few times, but it was just so cool. It's like I sit in a tree stand, you can hear the rabbits and squirrels are running around on the ground, and the birds, I can see them in the trees next to me. They're just chirping away, and all of a sudden, complete silence. The birds quit making noise. The squirrels and rabbits weren't moving around. They all got in their nest and their hole wherever they were at, and the birds got in their nest and are just quiet. It's like no sound at all.
Yeah,
That
that
was
always says you're like what's moving around that shut everybody up?
yeah. And it was just basically time for them to go to sleep for the night, and that's what they did. And it
Yep.
was getting toward, it was an evening hunt. um Out of that same tree stand, I had another day. I was in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm sitting in there, and all of a sudden I hear this big hissing sound, and it's like, it's like, what was that sound? And I'm looking up where the sound come from. Hot air balloon was going over the top of me.
Uh,
Just barely above the treetops. I think it was fairly close, and I could hear him, hitting the gas to raise the balloon
yep.
up, and it's like things like that. Just you don't expect to hear that, and you don't hear them coming in. You can't hear
No.
them at all. So you guys run a lot of trail cameras, or where
We
you're
do
at,
run
or
some, yeah. You know, out here it's a little bit harder to just because a lot of our stuff's public ground, and but we do have a few trail cameras. Like I said, when we're setting up for camp, we want to see what's running the trails. We'll go ahead and put some out, or especially for wallows and things like that to watch, figure out what time they're going to be coming around and doing things like that. We'll go ahead and put a trail camera out to watch those areas, and get an idea of when those bulls are coming in and hitting the wallows and how often.
yeah, it's kind of nice to have trail cameras. I never had them until just a few years ago, where we started putting trail cameras up. But man, you
Yep.
can learn a lot about the area. I got one area that I discovered is like, okay, there's no reason to go there unless you're hunting at night, because there was just nothing
Right.
really coming through during the daylight. And
Yep.
then it just, and then where they were coming through, and it's okay, they come through this area right before shooting time, so you can't shoot them there. But if you set up so once they get in the field, now then you have a chance, to figure out where they're
Right.
going. And that's one of the things you could never really tell where they was really going to end up. But you'd see them walking through back and
Well,
forth.
that's kind of
And
like out here. Run trail cameras for the deer and that. For mule deer, it can be kind of hard uh,
right.
unless you really find a pinch point where because they'll pick the different path in and out of the fields all the time. Like I said, elk we use it a lot, like I said, for the wallows and stuff, but to just generally try to watch things, it can be a little bit difficult because they don't run the trails in and out of things quite like whitetails do. You'll always see them in the fields, but they may exit and enter from totally different areas each time.
Yeah, they're more of a nomad type of a deer,
Exactly.
where the whitetail are more, a habit. They have their areas, and they kind of pretty much, that's where they live. This is their area that they live in, and
Yep.
they don't really move, and they follow trails, and makes it nice for us that like to sit in the trees.
Yeah, I know, and definitely, like I said, that's why out here, if you could sit, blinds on field edges and things like that, totally, especially for rifle hunting. Archery's a little bit harder for trying to
Yeah, you get in so much
or a
closer with
ditch crossing,
archery.
those type of things. Yeah,
Yeah, that's once you learn the area, that's kind of nice. Then you can put together a plan on how to make the best out of it, and get out there when it's appropriate time. And
yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, definitely. When I was guiding in that, we didn't have trail cameras as much back then, and so formulating a plan, it was basically just sitting on a hill and observing, and then reading the sign to build where to put the stands for clients and things like that. Whereas, it makes it a lot easier. You can cover so much more ground by having the cameras out.
yeah, I can remember walking where I'm going to put up a tree stand, and it's like, oh well, there's a trail, that I think they're using that, or you see some footprints in it and whatnot, and it's like, okay, there's a trail that they're using, and it's like, okay, where's a tree that I can get into that is going to be um, close enough to get a good shot, but not so far away, or not so close that they're going to get seen. And I like to set up the trees to be 20-yard shot. They never come in at 20 yards. They're always something different. They'll come in at 10 yards or 5 yards, or they'll even come in, far enough I can't see them. When you're in a forest area, you can't really see very far, but that it's kind of interesting. Yeah, you set out a plan, and they don't know the plan, and they don't follow it very well, do they?
Right. Yeah, like that was when I was guiding my cousin, and I put him. It's a new property we got, and I scattered out. So I put him in the spot where I knew where the trails were crossing, and I just went up the one finger ditch and said, "Hey, I'm just gonna get out of your way, climb in a tree, and see how the night goes." Well, I wasn't sitting in the stand very long. A couple some does came by and went straight for him. I'm like, "Sweet, he should get to one." But
You're kind of breaking up. We're catching about every other word.
It's better now.
Um, not sure. All I heard was better now.
Oh,
Problem.
yeah, I think I had a spot there where I was going to lose the signal.
Yeah, I know you get some of those areas that they just don't come in too well, and they kind of break up. I know coming into town, we have one area that we lose our phone every time we come in, right by the post office coming into the little village. It'll be going along, and all of a sudden, like whatever you're using on your phone, if you're on the internet, it's going to drop you. If you're on the phone, it's going to disconnect you. So we get there, and obviously Ryan had a spot there where he lost his signal. So maybe he'll join in here again. Gets a little bit better spot. Traveling in your car, trying to be on your phone is can be different at times, but yeah, there's a lot of good stories. We all have stories talking about the different things that was going on, and hunting, and we all have some kind of cool stories to tell, and that's always the cool part. I know I've been out in all kinds of different weathers, and watching the frost form on the trees as the sun's coming up is really cool, and that's something you don't forget. um, you always remember your first kill, of course. Looks like Ryan's coming back in.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know what happened there. It just all of a sudden just went blip and then just jumped right back. So
yeah, yeah, I have that once in a while too, where, okay, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna. It's starting to cut out, so I'm gonna lose you. So if I lose you, I'll call you back.
yeah. But no, what I said is like I said, set my cousin up his tree, and I just got out of the way up another one, and a bunch of does and small bucks came by real early in the evening. Went straight down to him, and I said, "All right, well, he'll get a chance. Good, and I'll just sit here till dark, and then I'll go check on him." And
Yeah.
like 10 minutes later, real nice 8-point comes by, and he came by so close to my tree that I was shooting straight down on him, and the arrow literally went through the shoulder blade, through his heart, and stuck in his brisket. That's how steep of an angle it was.
Oh, yeah. That's a steep angle. Um,
Yeah.
I try not to make those because they're just, you know, not the highest percentage shot, but when you make them, they're real deadly shot. Yeah, it's that I try to. Looks like he's having some connection problems again here, but he'll be back in a second.
No,
But
I'm
yeah,
here.
it's okay, you're there. I
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I'm
you
here.
got quiet. I wasn't sure if you could hear there or not, but
Oh,
um
I was just waiting to see what the next question was going to be.
oh, okay. Yeah, waiting for a question. Oh, okay, cool. Well, let's hear a story about your most challenging hunt.
Most challenging hunt would
Yes.
probably be uh, for elk, and it's honestly one that I didn't even get the bull, but I got in on him. And so it was a couple years ago. It was a warm year. They weren't bugling very much, so I started into a new area and got into some canyons and decided to just bugle and see what's down in there. Clear in the bottom, I got a bull to answer me, and so I went ahead and said, "To heck with it! He's bugling. It's our first real bull I've got active," and I bailed straight off. Went straight down into the bottom after him. Got down in there, and it ended up being 3 bulls in
Oh,
there and a bunch of cows, and had them all three screaming and bugling at me. The biggest herd bull, I never actually got to see him. He was he had a 300-inch satellite with him, so I know he had to be a monster.
oh yeah.
But he kept keeping those satellite bulls between him and me, and well, I was happy to take either one of them. And finally, the one of them broke. It came in, and me and him had probably 20 minutes of just screaming back and forth at each other, back and forth at each other, answering cow calls, trying to slip around the thick stuff because there was a big wad of thick stuff in between us, and I couldn't see him. I could hear him raking trees, and I knew he was right there. And finally, I got slipped around one edge far enough to where he came up the other side, and I ended up drawing on that bull 3 times at less than 30 yards, and just never could get it. He'd stop. It wouldn't be a clear lane. I'd let down. I'd call, and he'd bugle and move a little bit more, and I'd draw, and he'd go to come into a lane, and he'd stop just a little bit of limbs in the way. And but it was one of the most exciting and fun hunts because having that close encounter, and between those 3 bulls, they bugled probably 20 or 30 times that morning, and having him coming in like that, he's just screaming back and forth, but just not being able to get a shot just because of the steepness of the terrain and having too many downfalls in between us.
Huh. Yeah, that is an exciting and challenging hunt, of course. Uh, get that close. That's you see videos sometimes of the elk and moose and stuff, within feet of the person coming at
Yeah,
their full draw. And it's like, okay, what do I do? This thing is so close it might step on me when I shoot.
that's why I had one year that the elk I shot, I literally did not put a pin on it. It came in so close, I was at full draw, and I just kept slowly moving, turning with it as it came around me. Because when it stopped, I was just pointing the arrow and let it go because it was 3 steps from me.
Oh, that is close.
Yeah. There was no point of putting a pin on it. It was just point the arrow at the behind the shoulder and let it fly. The bull went like 20 yards and piled up.
Yeah, that close. There's really not much you can do because you can't aim it. A lot of people
No,
don't realize that distance what pin you'd have to use anyway.
right. It's literally just put everything on there. And I was always like, looking through my peep sight, and that's all I could see is the portion of the side of him, and all my pins are on there. So I just decided, all right, well, okay, point right there.
Yeah. The little smaller ones that we've talked about this a few times, those really close ones, those 5 feet one, you can't use your 20-yard pin.
No,
You're gonna have to use your 60 or 70-yard pin at that range. And then when, people, it's like, why would you have to use that? Well, then when you think about it, your arrow's down by your mouth, but your peep and sights are up by your eyes. So you're starting off really low. It's the same thing, with any projectile. It starts off at one level and it's going to rise and then drop. And
right.
So the bow, it might be using your 70-yard pin at 5 feet, but then by the time it gets to 10 yards, your 20-yard pin is so close, and in 20 yards and 30 is dropping. Well, then where is it at 7 yards? Which pin do you have to use there? Because it's not your 20, because it's somewhere between your really long range and there. So that's where shooting at the different distances really, can help. But when you got that big of an animal, it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, your kill zone is a 2-foot circle. I mean, so it's put it in the middle of it and let it fly.
Right. Which is trying to shoot small targets, that makes a difference. But these big ones, like like your elk, there's a huge kill zone, and say that, like a moose, I kind of liken a moose like a trash can lid as the kill zone. Anywhere in there is going to be good.
Yeah.
So have you had anything bigger than elk, like caribou or moose or anything, or?
Not a chance yet. We have to draw the tags out here, and have not been able to draw a moose tag yet. The area we hunt has a lot of them in it, and had this really, really bulls. We've gotten pictures of. My son and I got charged one year by a moose when we were elk and deer hunting. But trying to get a tag is hard because they only give out a couple of tags a year. So hopefully, maybe here sometime here in the next couple of years, I'll draw one.
Yeah, they're good. They're really, really good meat. I know I went on a moose hunt in Canada back. I think it's 95 is when I went up there with a friend of mine, and I got a cow. I couldn't get a bull tag where I was at, but I had a cow tag, and it's like I didn't care. A lot of meat, and I think
the meat is delicious. Yeah.
Oh, it's the best meat, I think. I of course haven't had caribou or much for elk steaks, but I don't see how you can beat it. It was just so good, and we had almost 500 pounds of meat out of that thing. So
yeah. One of my favorites for eating, if it's taken care of right, it's pronghorn.
Oh, pronghorn.
Especially these ones. Oh yeah, these ones we hunt. They graze in cattle pastures, so they're eating alfalfa and grass, and we take care of them from the time they're dead on the ground until we have them skinning on ice. It's usually within an hour.
Oh,
and if you do that with them, I mean, it is tender. Like even the one buck I killed 1 year, and we had him aged 8 years old, and you can still cut those steaks with pork and just delicious.
Oh yeah, that when it's that tender, man, that's it. And like you said, the key to having good meat is get them cold as quick as you can. Get them gutted and cleaned out.
Super important.
Yeah, I know that's people say, I've heard people say that it tastes gamey, and it's like, well, how quick was it cooled down? How was it cleaned? Have they left any of the fat on, like on a deer? Don't leave any fat on it. Take that
Nope.
membrane off. All that stuff's going to give it a bad taste. Um, you know, clean it off, and then too, with wild game, you got to be careful how you cook it. You don't want to cook it fast over high heat.
Right.
Cook it slow, and don't cook it
Yep.
well done. Well done wild game is going to be tough and not very good. But the best way to do it is when it's just cooked and it's still nice and pink, and once it starts turning brown, it's overcooked.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's like 2 to 5 depending on the steak, 2 to 5 minutes aside, and that's it.
Right. And if you like your steaks really thin, then it's maybe a minute on each side.
Oh, exactly. If you cut it thin, it's literally second you hit that sear, flip it.
Yeah, and that's some of probably the best meat. Well, I had one time when I was at a restaurant, one of these high-end restaurants down in Missouri someplace, and you go in there and they got the black curtains on, out covers over the tables, and they have somebody running the pass and everything else, and I ordered I think a filet mignon medium rare, and that thing was probably 1.5 inches thick, and it come in and there's a brown edge around the outside, and the inside was perfectly medium rare. The and that was for a steak that you buy at someplace. Yeah, that was really good. Most places don't know how to cook steaks, but probably
Right.
the best and most enjoyable I had one was deer, the tenders. I took them out, I threw them on the grill, and I go out there with my fork and my knife. And on the tenders, I always taper down. So as the tip looked like it was getting done, I put the fork in it, ate it, put the fork in it off the ends, and as it got a little bit, I'm eating it right off the grill as it's getting perfect condition. I'm eating it. It's like I can watch it getting ready. It's okay, that's ready, cut it, eat it. Nothing on it, just meat, no salt, no nothing. It's right off the grill. And man, that was so good. And until I went to that high-end restaurant, I'd never had a steak of any kind, any place, even places that, pride themselves on steaks. It's like, okay, yeah, give me a hamburger. This is too hard to eat.
Right.
But that was one of those restaurants that you go in, and they're not listed in dollars and cents. There's not even a dollar sign. It's just a number. You
Yeah.
have the description, what it is, and a number. And my wife said, there's no prices on here. Yeah, there is. But you go to restaurants, and it's like $24.99 or $12.99 or something like that. No, this was like 35. Because
Yeah.
many years ago. Now it's probably just 50. But it's like 35, and that's $35 a steak. And at that time, I think that's what it was. I know we two of us, between we ate, it was like $100 for the two of us to eat, and this was in, oh gee, probably close to 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So you can see that was a high-end restaurant. Everybody comes out, it's all just sing, and you can see the guy at the Passion, like you see, in the Gordon Ramsay restaurant stuff. There's a guy that they cook it and then they check it, make sure it's good, and then before they send it out. Not like a lot of restaurants where they cook it, give it to the waiter or waitress, and they bring it out, and how it is how it is. And we went to one time where the supposed to be known for their steaks. We sent it back twice, and the third time we still couldn't get it right. So it was forget it. Never went back.
Yep.
When you send a steak back 3 times, wrong 3 times, is, well, we use the thermometer. Did you stick the thermometer in it before you rested it or after? Because it always gets
Right.
cooked more. If you rest it, it's from when you cook a steak for 3 minutes, you rest it for 1.5 minutes. You're supposed to rest half the amount of time that you cook it for. And if you don't, then it all just gets no good. But we kind of digressed in the cooking, but that's what we do on this
It's a big
podcast.
part of what it is. I mean, we're out here to not just to kill these animals, but we're out here to eat them. And a lot of people don't like it because they either don't know how to cook it or don't know how to take care of it right. And it's
Right.
like, taking those extra little bit to make sure it's done right. And it is some of the best eating out there.
Right. Yeah. And that's, that's why we do it, is, says we know how the food was treated, where it was at, how it was processed. And I say,
Yep.
I don't normally just process it myself, because now I know how it was prepared. I know it is my meat, the animal that I killed. You take it into the butchers and you can't be guaranteed that it's your meat you're getting back.
Right. And that's why
You know,
I do everything myself.
right.
We have a great big grinder set up. I've got sausage attachments and everything for it. So that's what I spent yesterday cutting up my wife's deer, get it all broke down into stuff where I can grind for burger and all the steaks ready to package. But yeah, I've been doing it for, over 30 years, and I've never had one I've taken anywhere. I do everything myself.
Yeah. And even making the sausages and the pepperoni sticks and all that, you can do that yourself.
Oh
They
yeah.
have mixes. You go out, and I did some pepperoni sticks one time, and I didn't want to put it in the skins. So I just squirted it out onto a tray, with some plastic wrap on it, or wax paper on it, squirt it on a tray, stuck in the freezer, and got it froze. Well, and now it's froze, so now you can stick them in a bigger bag. As long as you don't put them in a refrigerator freezer, they'll last for a long time, and they won't
Yeah.
all of a sudden form into one big mess. And then we could cook them, and once they were done, then that was how we would get them going, and then you can cook them up. And some stuff you don't have to cook, because the seasonings will actually cook the meat.
Yeah, that's what usually I do. Use my dehydrator for. Actually, the last time I did some jalapeno cheddar sticks, and I just squirted it onto the trays into my dehydrator and cooked it that way. That came out perfect.
Oh yeah. And one time we got um when I had the moose in the freezer, I think I had a couple of deer already, and I got this one deer. It's like, okay, I have no room in the freezer for it. And so we ended up taking the whole deer. It lasted about 2 weeks because I made jerky out of it. And how I'd do my jerky is I'd get a sauce that I discovered from when my one cousin got married. My other cousin made this beef brisket, and I figured it's just regular beef brisket. And I was like, oh man, this is good. How'd you fix it? Well, it's Claude's sauce out of, I think it's San Antonio, Texas. So we started to get that. We marinate the strips of meat in it and stick it in the dehydrator. And as I put it on there, kids say, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? So as soon as it's ready, I'd get it out and then start eating it. Now the next batch is going, and then be eating it. I think 2 weeks went to the whole deer in 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks because they just wanted it as soon as it's ready, they'd eat it. It's ready, they'd eat it. And I didn't mind, because I didn't have room in the freezer for it anyway. And
Right.
you the one key to keeping meat good is in a deep freeze that does not self-clean. If it's a frostless freezer, you've got just a matter of months before the meat is bad, because it'll go through all the freeze and thaw, freeze and thaw, freeze and thaw, and that's
Yeah.
what makes the meat go bad. And I know when I had my moose, it was probably 5 years later, I found some moose at the bottom of the freezer, and I pulled it out. Nothing wrong with it. It was perfectly fine. And
Yeah. So if you got, yeah, it'll last.
yeah, if it's froze and never thawed out, nothing's going to change on it.
Nope.
Yeah. In fact, I've heard stories where they found, wild animals frozen in the Arctic in ice, and ice thawed enough, and the meat was still good because they've never thawed.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the key. And I'm not sure how many know that going through that freeze thaw cycle is what is going to wreck your meat if it's in there for very long. And not just venison, steak, chicken, fish especially is real susceptible to freezer burn. And
Oh yeah.
I think probably the best way, if you're going to keep fish in a regular refrigerator for a period of time, um, encase it in water, because the water is going to protect it from thawing. Now, of course, you have to thaw it out. It's going to be really watery, but it might change the texture. But either that or just eat it up quicker. And
But see, that's what I do actually with small game is I actually, before we get enough to be able to do our big packages, I'll put it in freezer Ziplocs, but put it in water. That way it encases it, and then the lighter meat won't freezer burn at all.
right, yeah, that's a good way to do it. Wrap it and then freeze it in water. I know when I've wrapped my meat, what I normally do is I go to like Sam's or place like that, get the plastic wrap, the commercial grade plastic wrap. It's like twice as thick as this, like the saran wrap that you buy. That's really thin, hard to work with. And I'll wrap the meat with that really tight, get pretty much all the meat, the air out of there as I can. And I'll take butcher paper and I'll wrap it up with butcher paper, and then I'll wrap it again. And I've had, like I said, meat lasts for 5 years easily in the freezer. You can wrap that good, and you pull it out, and it thaws out a little bit. You take the plastic wrap off, and because it's the thicker stuff, it comes off a lot easier.
We used to do it that way.
Yeah, we now do with the vacuum seal. So we wrap it first in a plastic wrap, where we have these special baggies we'll use. We'll put 1 or 2 layers of that in, and then put it into the sealer. And as long as you get it sealed, get all the air out, it'll last just fine. Yeah, we've had stuff that 3-4 years old and still perfectly fine.
Yeah, what I found when I started, I didn't wrap them in plastic first, and then you get some of the juices start sucking out of it, and so I didn't do a lot of vacuum seal. I've got a vacuum sealer. In fact, I'd get a second one because the first one quit working. But I use that for quite a bit too. And then here a couple of years ago, we got a freeze dryer, so we're able to go through and freeze dry a lot of stuff. And I haven't really tried too much on meat on that, but you're supposed to work good on that. But nice thing about that is, you get it set, and then if you put it in the Mylar bags with the oxygen absorbers, that's your 25-year storage. You see advertising a lot, these buckets of food, it's gone through a freeze dryer. That's all it is. And I've done that, scrambled eggs. My son has got chicken, so we get lots of eggs from him because he's got enough. He probably gets during the summertime a dozen eggs a day plus duck eggs and everything else. So I've gone through, put them in a freeze dryer. You can either cook them and put them in there, or you can do them raw and then powder them up, and then the powdered eggs and I've reused them, and you cannot tell those rehydrated ones from the fresh ones. And it's kind of nice because 2 tablespoons of powder, 2 tablespoons of liquid, and there's an egg. And that's nice because you can keep it for a long period of time and have them when you need them and want them. And I worry about the eggs going bad in the refrigerator because they don't need to be refrigerated. And you can do all kinds of stuff. I'm kind of looking at maybe trying some meat. I've done like scrambled eggs with ham and eggs and cheese and peppers and stuff like that, and that works out pretty good too. But yeah, just keep the meat, and I don't see that it's going to be as good rehydrated as it would be just regular froze, but I don't know. We'll have to try it and see.
Heading in the house now, so
Yeah, I seen you out moving around. Your voice kind of cut out and then back in. So now you're in the house, I have a little bit better reception, hopefully, right?
yeah, I'll hook to our Wi-Fi. So
Yeah, that makes a little bit nice. We can actually see you a little better now too.
right. But yeah, that'll be a little better now. So
Yeah, won't be cutting out quite so bad.
no, yeah, exactly. Without the moving down the road. Alrighty.
Now that you're all situated back in the house, we can nice background. Now you've got the turkey fans mounted, and you've seen some deers was walking in, and all
Yeah, that's
kinds
my
of
big mule
cool
deer.
stuff back
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it didn't see it, just kind of seen a glance of it coming in, didn't get to see it too close, but yeah, it's
Yep.
you got several turkeys back there.
Oh yeah, that's actually the one in the middle is Eastern from Iowa, and then the other two, it's my Merriams and my Rio from here, because we have both species here in Colorado. We have Merriams and Rios, and so the only thing I'm missing for my slam is an Osceola.
And you have any plans to go and getting that one anytime soon, or?
Yeah, I started looking at it, and didn't get a chance to go this year, but hopefully next spring. If not, if we don't get a chance to go next spring, then the next after that definitely, because my son will be in the Marines, and he's actually going to be stationed down there in Florida. So he's already picked his stationing. So when we go down to visit, I'm like, well, I'm going to go down and go turkey hunting.
Yeah, I was going to ask where you're going to get the turkey, which state you're going to hunt the turkey in. But you
Yep.
answered that, Florida. While your son's in the Marines, you going to get a chance to go out with you when you're turkey hunting there?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we try to plan it when he has some leave and go down there, and so.
So is he in the Marines now then, or is?
No, he's a Marine Poolee right now, so he's
Okay.
17, but he's in the DEP program, so he'll be he actually ships out June 3rd of next year. So
And he's going to be stationed in Florida. What's he going to do in the military?
he's actually going to go to aviation mechanics.
Oh, that'll be a good career. If he stays in for his 20 or gets out, that's some good, good mechanic. Aircraft mechanic is not always easy to find.
Yeah, so he'll have a job, in and out. So, but yeah, he'll do his basic in California, and then when he gets out there, they already had when they did the sign up, he already picked that he'll go to Pensacola. So,
Oh, nice that you get a pick it, and hopefully he gets there.
yep.
I know when I went in the Air Force, I purposely did not pick off it because I didn't want to come here. I picked everything north, and where do I get? Abilene, Texas. I didn't put anything in south. It was all north, east, west, and because I didn't want to go to Offutt because I knew if I got there, I'd be stuck there for a long time. And I lived around here, so I wanted to go elsewhere. And so I went to Abilene, Texas,
Right.
Nice Air Force Base, and I met a couple of friends down there, and I still talk with them once in a while. And here a couple of years ago, I actually stopped down and seen one guy's from New Orleans, and the other one's from Salt Lake. So when I was down to Florida, I drove down to Florida purposely for an event down there so I could stop by my uncle's in northern part of Florida and see him. He was 99 at the time. He's now 100. And then on my back, stop and see Jerry, a friend of mine in New Orleans, and made for a long drive, from Nebraska to Florida is like 24 hours, but for me it was worth it because I didn't want to fly.
Yep.
Not afraid of flying. I don't want to deal with all the stuff that goes on while you got to go through to fly anymore.
Oh, I know.
And then you kind of limited what you can take with you, because you go on the airline, you can't take this, you can't take that, and if you do, you got to put it in your check luggage, and then you got to hope it actually makes it there. And yeah, it was just easier to throw the stuff in the car and go.
Yep. That's like when I went to Ontario to hunt whitetail. The SEO wanted to set up and fly. I'm like, nope, I'm driving. I ain't dealing with anything with that. I'm just gonna throw stuff in the truck and drive up.
Yeah. Then as you go through the border, you know what you can take in, what you can't take in. If you're going in, you're going bow hunt, then you got your bow. If you're going in rifle hunt, you got your rifle. Just don't try and take a handgun in Canada.
Archery, and go with archery equipment. They're like, do you have any firearm? Nope. You just my bow. Like, do you need? They're like, nope. You're fine. Have fun. That's the end of it.
Yeah. When I went up to Canada for moose hunting, I took a couple of rifles with me, and and just kind of declare what you got and come back. It's like, oh, here's what I shot. I got a moose
Yep.
and a fox, and like, okay. They didn't even check. I was like,
Nope.
here's what I got. Like, okay, fine. See ya. They asked and I told them what I had.
Yep, and that's just it. And if they, as long as it sounds like you're not hiding anything, they're like, all right, be on your way, have a good time.
Yeah. I think they've talked to enough people, they can tell when somebody's a little, well, you can be nervous talking to them just because you're going through that. But, I think
Right.
they can tell us like, hey, answer as the question is like, well, I got this. Just go through and, if you're trying to hide something, yeah, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm sure you have some other interesting stories. You say you lived in Iowa for a while, guided in there. Tell us about some of those hunts, because that's kind of right here by me. I'm in,
Yeah.
almost at Iowa, and just outside of Omaha. I'm West Omaha.
Okay, yeah, that ain't very far at all. Actually, we're in southwest Iowa. Yeah, down our main area was in Adams County, and sometimes there, that's big buck mecca. And I mean, that's one thing I do miss is just the amount of hunting I got to do there. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for stuff here, but nothing's real close. I mean, for us to go and hunt here, it's a couple-hour drive. But whereas there, shoot, those a lot of times I'd take, my hunting clothes, my bow with me to school, and on the way home from school, change it into my camo and go climbing a tree. My first buck with a bow actually was 150-inch 8-point, and it was a new property I got. I set my stand up, got a chance to sit in it, shot a doe, and filled my doe tag, and then left it for 2 weeks. Sat in again, and it was actually the 13th of November. Knew the bucks were going to be chasing and that stuff, so got in early. Got well before daylight. Sat there, and right at daylight, had a little doe come up past me, and okay, well, it's kind of slow morning, but like doe this time of year, that's good. Then about that time, I hear this real soft grunt, and he'd come up from the river bottom, which was to the south of me. And literally the whole way, I couldn't see him, but all I could hear was just arnt, 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 arnt. He just grunted constantly all the way up through, came straight underneath me, and I actually almost passed him because he's got real tall brow tines. And the way he was sitting, he's looking at the ground, looking straight down at the back of his rack. He didn't look that big. But then, what I did back then is I'd carry the old film canisters with me, and I'd put cotton balls in them and put a few drops of estrus urine in. And when I get my stand, I'd pop the tops and throw them out for my stand. Well, he went straight underneath me, cut the crosswind to one of those canisters, and turned, spun. I stopped at 10 yards perfectly broadside with his nose stuck in that canister. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't pass this. So I drew back, let the arrow fly, and he literally ran out straight into the field, spun around a couple times trying to pull the arrow out, and ended up like falling on the arrow and rammed it clear to the front of his chest, jumped straight in the air, ran straight away like 5 yards, and just slid dead on the side in the middle of the field.
that was an interesting story.
I mean, I'm like sitting here looking around going, did anybody else see this? I actually had a buddy of mine who was hunting just up the field edge from me, and he goes, oh, I wish I had a video camera to video that. And it's like, now, video and everything is nice, but it'd have been great to be able to have that on video just to watch that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I got down to go out to him, and once I got up to him, I realized what he was, and I'm like, wow, I'm glad I did not pass on him. He's a gorgeous buck. And I was actually, like I said, I was 16, and it was my first buck with a bow.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I know there may be some that don't know what a film canister is, but when I was younger, they used to be metal and with a lid that screwed on, and then they went to plastic with a snap-on cap. And I used to do that, put cotton balls in there, and there was for 35 millimeter film. And little canisters, they're probably a couple inches tall, about an inch or so diameter, little normally black with a gray cap on it and pop that cap off, put cotton balls in there, put sand in there, put it on there. And, I did the same thing, except I wouldn't throw them. Normally I just set them out so I could find them.
I remember what direction they went. So
yeah, it's like, I'm going to just chuck it, just throw it, and like, oh, where'd it go? I don't know. It's somewhere over that way. I'd kind of place them so I knew how to find them, because I didn't want to go through a lot of those canisters, and now I think I got a few laying around someplace, but not too many. I think I got one or two of the metal ones someplace laying around, but I wouldn't use those because I'd probably do something different. There's other containers I could probably use, and
right. And of course now now they got the little drag things, I think you can hang up, but shoot, back then we didn't have any of that, so you had to make your own.
No. Yeah, if we wanted something, we made it, because there just wasn't anybody making all that stuff, and a lot of things that we had to do, we just did it, didn't think nothing about it, and now people are making money doing what we've been doing for years.
Right. Yeah, I used to take to hang for a licking branch that the old cloth whisker biscuits that were for your silencers for your bowstring.
Right.
I would actually take one of those and dip it in it and tie it to a branch, or use that as a drag too.
Well, you know what I do? I take a piece of hide and tie a string on it, punch a hole and tie a string on it, and I'd use that to put my sand on.
I actually would keep on a mature buck, I'd keep the tarsal gland, and I would use that for a drag. Yeah, and then I could reapply scent to it, and yep.
Yeah, it's like, why waste it? You might as well keep the hide for something.
Yep.
There are places that I know you can take the hide in, and then you take how many hides one guy was talking about, but you take the hides and then they give you a pair of gloves. You trade in 2-3 whatever it is, and they give you a pair of gloves made out of deer hide or whatever it is hide they're using. And you can tan them yourself. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. And I used to take and I made a little conduit frame around it, and I'd sew it to it and scrape all the stuff off of it, and put salt on it, dry it up, and and then then they'll last for quite a while. Then you can continue the tanning process if you want, or just leave them like that. But it's like, why throw it in the garbage? There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a couple of friends that used to take, the carcass and stuff that we have, and then give it to their dogs to eat the meat. They'd clean the bones and stuff off and let them go ahead and have it, because there's some that you're not going to get scraped off, but dogs love to eat it.
Well, actually, the long bones, that's actually, I'm actually, my day job is a vet tech. And so dental care for dogs is huge. And one of the best things I found is actually the long bones. I give my dogs that, and I have dogs live to 15 and never, ever need a dental cleaning, because I give them those leg bones, a couple of those in the fall, and they'll chew on it and scrape their teeth clean and never have to worry about it.
I guess I hadn't really known it. Good thing I have a vet tech on. Talk about how you can keep your dogs a little better shape. Give them those leg bones.
The long, you don't want to do any of the small brittle bones, but like the heavy leg bones, where they can sit there and gnaw on the knuckles and that, and they'll scrape every bit of tartar or stuff off their teeth. And of course, then they're getting some nutrients from it too. And it's, like I said, my hunting dogs, they'll grab one of those and go lay in their bed, sit there for 3 hours and not move, but just sit there and chew on it.
Now, what about the ribs? Was that too brittle or something? Or
yeah, ribs, you got to be careful, because they could splinter, and then you're going to end up, you don't want to have them to eat a whole lot of bone, because then that could cause all kinds of problems coming out the other end.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I don't have a dog I'd be feeding it to, but it's kind of nice to know that, give them those leg bones, and keep. My son's got a couple of dogs, and I think that would be good for, I'll let him know that, in fact, he may do it, because he may listen to the podcast too. I don't know how much of them he listens to, but every once in a while he'll make a comment on them. But that's kind of nice to know that, that take the leg bones.
And you can keep them in the freezer. Like, I'll take, I'll give them a couple, and then the extra ones, a lot of times I'll just keep in the freezer and either keep them for later, or sometimes I'll take them into work with me. and everybody will just divvy them up to take to their home to their dogs. Yeah, the
Yeah, it's
main thing
like,
is just don't cook them, because once they're cooked, then they actually, some parts become harder than their teeth and they can break teeth. So that's why I like it when they're raw, because they're still soft enough that they won't break a tooth on it.
oh, okay. That's good to know. Um, Now is it just the upper part of the leg, or can you use the lower part of the leg as well?
No, you can use the lower, like any of the long bones. That
Okay.
they're heavy enough bone that they won't splinter, and then they can really chew on them. Yeah.
But that's good to know. It's like now it's not going to go to waste, because normally you just take and you put them in the trash or wherever,
Right.
and
Yep.
save your hides. There's, and if you don't want to save it, then find somebody that will take it, and take it, and so you're not letting that go to waste. The leg bones, that's not going to waste. Everything else is kind of going to have to, because there's really not much you can do with it,
Right.
that I know of anyway. There may be something. Hey, if you know what you can do with the rest of the bones on a deer, hey, let us know, because I'm kind of curious at what else you can do with them. So you're not just, putting them in a bag and then putting a bag in it and then throwing them in the trash, or wherever you're taking them. And it's kind of nice now that, when I get one, I'll just have to let my son know. It's like, hey, we're gonna keep the leg bones, feed them to your dogs.
Nope.
Just don't cook them. And he's got a couple of dogs, and I think they'd appreciate it. And hey, it gives them something to do. And who knows, maybe it's chickens, and the ducks will eat on it too. If the dogs don't get to them first.
But now that I'm out here, one of the big things, like I said, one of our missions, with the show is getting youth involved, and so I get to do a lot of stuff with 4-H, and so I'm actually an archery instructor, and that's been a lot of fun, just working with the kids and taking them through. I've taken my boys, actually my oldest, he's actually won the state competition for archery, and my younger one has got to go and compete, and so it's just a lot, just to teaching the kids and getting them involved. And we have set up to where we have stuff that they can borrow, so they don't have to buy anything until they know they want to get it and what they want to get. And then we have ways we help them to be able to get the what they need, and you try to get them discounts and things like that. Like I work with one of the pro shops here that actually all the kids that are, as long as they tell them they're one of my kids, he actually tune and adjust their bow for them for free.
Well, that's good. You've got something worked out with the local store, that
Yeah.
the local shop that'll work with them like that. Yeah, it's always nice when you get them started and they don't have to go out and spend all this money just to get started, and then them not liking the sport. Because a lot of kids will go through all kinds of different sports. They'll do this, they'll do that. Next thing you know, and then go on to something else. And it's nice if the parents don't have to spend several $100s on a bow, and then use for a week, and it's like, nah, I don't like this.
Right. No, that's what we totally tell them. And we tell them, like, come try it, come for a couple weeks. And then if you like it, then we'll help you get what you need. And, we have, Colorado is actually really competitive in the national level. We actually, our archery group that went to nationals, my son actually went for shotgun this year in the nationals. But our archery group from here in Colorado actually took second overall in the nation.
Oh, that's good. Nice dedicated kids and some good instruction.
Yep. And actually, we go to Grand Island, where they compete is in Grand Island there. So,
Oh yeah, he coming halfway to my house.
yeah, we're there. That's in June every year. But they hold it there at the fairgrounds there in Grand Island.
They have the archery there. I know, like at Donovan, they have the trap shooting there every year.
It's actually out at the I can't remember the name of the range. Everything's pretty much held out at the range just outside of town. It's like 10 minutes out of town there, and they actually have the sporting clays and the trap shooting and all that. And then actually the 3D part of the archery is actually on the sporting clay range. And then they have just some open fields next to it where they do the regular targets for archery.
That's good. It might be the same place.
Yeah, I think
Donovan is
it might be
where they
Heritage.
have.
Yeah, that might be. I can't remember the name of it. I think it might be Heritage. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the ranges. I just know what's at because we just going out there. My son went out there, and it's kind of interesting when you have 2 or 3 thousand kids under 18-year-old, from 12 to 18, carrying shotguns around, and
Yeah.
nobody's paranoid.
Yep.
Nobody's afraid. These kids know what they're doing, and the same thing, with the archery. You've got however many go to that event carrying around bows. You don't have all these problems going on because the kids know what to do. That's the
Oh,
thing.
yeah, they actually have, yeah, and actually at the Nationals they have 22 pistol, 22 rifle, air pistol, air rifle, both recurve and compound archery, and the muzzleloader and shotguns. You got all those kids doing all those venues all at the same time during that week. And yeah, it's
it's amazing. And then some people are paranoid of that. It's like, teach your kids about, weapons and hunting and fishing and outdoor skills. And, that's the
yeah,
thing that, we need to know, because, everybody's, we're used to so many conveniences, that what happens if they go away? What are you
right,
going to do if all of a sudden, there's something going on and you can't go to the store to pick up your meat, to pick up your veggies, you pick up all your food. And that's why we go through and have a garden, and then we preserve it, how we're going to do that so we can have this good food later. We don't have to worry about going in and it's like, okay, there's a recall on this food because of some contaminants in there. It's like, I don't have that, but I didn't buy it at
right,
the store. you know
yeah,
and then
exactly,
there's a lot of stuff I see in the store, and it's like, if mine looked that bad, I'd compost it, and they're trying to sell it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something that, guys and ladies like us that, well, we're not ladies like us, I mean us guys and then ladies as well, kind of change that thing. It's like, the people that enjoy being outdoors can provide for themselves. And that's one of the things that you're doing, is you're helping these kids learn how to provide for themselves. And who knows, they might pick up archery now and then drop it for a while and come back. I've talked to
yep.
several people that it's like, as a kid, I did this all the time. And then, went to college, got married, had kids. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm back into archery, and my kids are now with me in archery. Before that you kind of set it aside, but that just kind of never really leaves you. And, that's
That's
always kind
one
of
of
cool
my favorite
stories.
things in the summertime we do is me and the boys. My wife goes sometimes too, but we have a walk through 3D range here not too far from us, where they have 28 targets set through the mountain, and it's a trail you walk through the mountain shooting all different yardages, all different targets, and we'll spend a day there just hanging out, shooting our bows, chilling, hiking, and shooting our bows on 3D range. That's our me and my boys is that's our time together.
Yeah. Now, where's that range at? I know you're in Colorado, but whereabouts are you?
It's Cheyenne Mountain. So
Oh, sure. Okay.
it's actually, yeah, it's outside of Colorado Springs, but it's the Cheyenne Mountain Shooting Range. And they have the regular range, which now our registrations we get, you don't have to pay to park anymore. But then the 3D range, it's free for kids, and then anyone 16 and older, it's $3 for the entire day to go shoot the range.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's like I said, so we'll go there and just spend a few hours, and I teach the boys, I have my rangefinder with me, but we'll walk up and pick a spot we're going to shoot from. I'm like, all right, how far is it? And so I'm teaching them how to be able to guess the yardage and that stuff. And then, we'll check it with the rangefinder and that. But
Yeah, I know for a long time I never had a rangefinder. I think just a couple years ago I finally got my first one. I think I used it last year when I went out rifle hunting, because where they're coming through this one area, they come through during the night, except one area they come through just before shooting season. So I wanted to set up far enough away that I could catch them. So I want to know how far it was because I knew how my gun was sighted in, but I want to make sure how far it was so I knew exactly what I was going to be doing. And of course they never come through, but
Yeah.
that's
No, that's what, I've used it more out here just because, when we're spotting stock, we have a lot farther yardage sometimes. Like, I've taken a lot of shots that were, 50 to 70 yards. My longest shot was on my big, actually, pronghorn. I killed him at 90. But, it's like, so when you get out there that far, I don't take those shots often, and it has to be perfect conditions. The animal's
right.
calm, no wind. But you have to know that, you can't guess that. So,
No.
those things that are beyond that, that's where I use my rangefinder a lot. Because, like I said, there's a lot of times we'll be stalking along and you'll get 50 yards and then they kind of know something's up and you try to move closer. And like my son's buck that he killed, we tried moving on him 3 different times. And I ranged him the first time, 54 yards. We stuck around, moved around, got on him again, and he moved. Ranged him again, 54 yards. It happened 3 times. I was like, well, I said, it's up to you. You've shot that far. And but I said, we're not going to get any closer. That's where he's staying. And so he took the shot and he got him. So
That's pretty cool. So you said that was Cheyenne Mountain State Park Archery Range, huh?
yep. Yeah.
Okay. I was kind of looking aside. I was kind of bringing it up because hey, while we're talking about it, let's just bring it up and and show everybody that's able to watch this video. And if you're just listening to it, get out to the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, join there, and you can actually watch it, or go out to my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself, and you'll be able to see the videos come out for there. But yeah, there's just going to scroll down through here and see, there's some of your 3D targets, regular targets, some kids shooting.
Yeah, they actually use it for the mentor program that I've done some stuff with the Parks and Wildlife, where we actually set up with these kids and we send them through hunter's ed, take them, have them practice stuff, and then actually get involved with some ranchers, which I had, I was one of the ones that was guiding the kids, where then we take them out as a mentor and take them out on their first hunts and getting them out there and just showing them the ropes and showing them what it is to be out there and everything, and be in a controlled environment where they don't have to worry about anything. Everything's all taken care of for them. And it's a really cool program that they have. And it was really fun being a part of.
Yeah, it is. It looks like they have the Genesis bow that they're using, and yeah, it's couple of kids look like they're shooting kind of uphill. This one, they're
Some of
really
them are.
leaning
Some
back.
of them are. You're actually some of them you're shooting straight down across canyons. Some of them are level, but it is straight across the canyon. Some of them are uphill through the trees. It's really actually set up just like hunting scenarios.
That's that looks like a nice facility. If I get up there, I'm gonna have to stop by there if I get to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Definitely worth stopping in and checking it out, especially the price is fairly inexpensive to go.
Yep. And if you're not a resident and you have to get the park pass, it's like $7. So, one
Yeah.
person, it's $10 for the day. I mean, that's a pretty cheap day on the range.
Yeah, you get day permit $3 for that, plus get in, you can get your annual permits and whatnot. It's like, hey, it's for a day out. What you can't go to a movie for that.
No.
What's a movie ticket cost you? More than that for a movie ticket. And I don't go to movies too often anymore, but I'd go shoot my bow there.
Right. And then the other thing we need to do, it's the first time actually I shot it this year, was the Total Archery Challenge. That is an absolute blast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they set them up in different states, but it's literally it's three days of shooting, and it's courses. So like here, they do it on one of the ski resorts shut down in the summertime, and they have all these different 3D courses set, and you're hiking. Like the one for the couple of them, you ride the ski lift all the way to the top of the mountain, and then you're hiking through, taking shots in their depending on the course you're on, they can be anywhere from 20 yards clear out to like 110 yards on these shots. Now, I mean, if you're not set up for that, you can always move in a little closer for those. But it's really cool. Then down at the end, they have booths and stuff set up, and they have challenges set up where you can win chances to win a new truck and all kinds of new stuff. But it's a lot of fun. And like I said, we did it this summer. Me and one of my pro staff, we went through and shot it, and it was a complete blast. Like some of those targets, whoo, they were tough. Like you're shooting 70 yards across the field, and you have a less than a foot to squeeze it between trees to hit the target.
Yeah, that's a challenge in itself, and that's where knowing how your bow shoots at different ranges. When you're doing it, that's why you see a lot of blinds have holes in them, because they didn't realize that, hey, my pin is on it, but my arrow is way lower.
Yep. Yeah, we had one target, and literally I took a picture of it, and the two trees on either side of it, it looked like a porcupine. There's so many arrows stuck in them, and you could see where people had pulled their arrows out and left just the points behind. Like my group of 5, I was actually the only one that got one through. I was like, it's one of those things where you release your arrow, and you're like, oh wait, I didn't hear it swack a tree. Okay, I made it through.
Yeah, I've done that. Where you hit a tree. I shot at this one deer, and I did not see this tree at all, but it was only about an inch and a half diameter. I hit that tree dead center. I thought I hit that deer hard because I heard this thwack. I just thought I just hit a big bone or something, because I shoot muzzies, and they hit a bone, they don't care. They still go through.
Yeah.
Well, here this was. I got this big old split. My broadhead's buried into this tree. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to unscrew my broadhead. I'm just going to cut this inch of board, tree off and take it back out, because little bitty sapling in a big forest. Like, I'm going to keep my broadhead. I just got sharpened blades now.
Right. And I actually did that one year on a mule deer. Yeah, we were walking a little trail, and is across a little saddle, and there was one limb going across, but I'm like, I should be fine with where it was on it. I'm like, no, I should be able to either slip that arrow right over or right under, put it on him, say whack. My buddy's like, all right, you got him. I'm like, no, pretty sure I hit the limb in front. And there's no getting the arrow back, because of course it from the ground up, it was like, 50, 60 feet in the air stuck in this limb. But I did the same thing, a limb that's, an inch around, and I dead centered that thing.
It's amazing. We hit these 1-inch trees and missed this 6-inch kill zone.
Yeah. But I was like, I thought for sure with, looking at where it was compared to him, I'm like, no, I can slip that arrow around that limb and into him. Nope.
Yeah, you think you can, and you miss. At one time, I'm in a tree stand, and this deer comes down this trail from behind me over on my right hand side, and I take and I shoot it, and I don't know what I missed. I heard this go swack right in the tree, and it, like it's probably 30, 40 feet up in the air, because I was on top of a hill and the trees were down at the bottom of the valley. So there's no getting. In fact, I never did see which tree it hit. Well, of course, it scared that deer, but the noise is to the far side. He runs to my left, turns towards me, and runs back to look at that shooting, give me a closer shot. So, of course, I got an arrow ready, and I'm a full draw waiting on that one, and I shoot, and I hear another deer coming from the other side of me. So I shoot that one, watch where it runs, turn around, load another arrow, draw back, and wait for the other one to come out of the opening, and I shoot that one. I started shooting 2 that day. Of course, then I got to track 2 and claim 2 and drag 2 out. But hey, I shot 2 in one day.
Yeah. I had one of the craziest things I've ever had happen to me last year, up elk hunting, and I was way up on top, and I got these bulls started bugling below me, so I slipped down in just above them, and I'm set up. I was hunting solo, and I could hear the one would only bugle once in a while. The other one was just bugling and bugling, and all of a sudden I hear this little just to my right. Look over in the one bull. He's coming. He's like 20 yards coming right at me. And so I kind of scoot and get set, wait for him. And he gets up to, it was like 15, 18 yards, and he's sitting there raking a tree. And I put the pin on him. I'm like, oh, sweet, beautiful 6x6. And as he's got his head kind of down to the side because he was kind of messing with his little tree. And wide open, there's a couple little pine needles in the way, but otherwise, perfect shot right at him. I release the arrow and I hear this just crack. And the bull takes off like 30 yards, stands there shaking his head. And I'm like, and then I see my arrow stuck in a tree. When I released the arrow, he jerked his head up and his right beam took my arrow out of the air just before it hit him.
Oh, and that is one of those 1 in a million chances that arrow turned at the right time.
Yep, just turned just right. That beam just took, and it broke my arrow right behind the broadhead. And the broadhead, I never found it, but the arrow flipped over his back and stuck in a tree.
One lucky bull.
Oh yeah, because he was. I was like, "Oh, you're done, dude." And I was already getting excited. I'm like, "Yeah, like this is a chip shot," and then that happens. I'm like, "What the?"
Yeah. What's going on? You'd never, if it hadn't happened to you, you'd never believe a story like that. It's like, yeah, they turned and knocked it out of the air.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't in the way or nothing. It was wide open to him. He jerked his head just perfect to hit that arrow out of the air.
Yeah, probably heard the bow going off and just a little bit enough of reaction that was able to turn it in.
Yep. Because I've had pronghorn that shot at like 50 yards and they can move so fast. I've had them spin out of the way of an arrow, but I've never had something like that before.
Yeah.
There was buck one was sitting in a water hole and he wouldn't quite come in. So I got out of my blind and snuck up to the edge and he's standing there and I put it on him. I'd have had better luck if I'd have aimed at his butt and hit him in the opposite side than to hit him where I did. I got released the arrow and he spun and was heading the opposite direction before the arrow ever hit the dirt where he was standing. And that's in my setup. I'm moving it over 300 feet per second. He was at 48 yards. I mean, that arrow was there in the blink of an eye, and he spun out of the way of it.
It's amazing the reaction times that the deer and stuff like that have.
Yeah.
That when you shoot and the deer can duck down underneath it and then go, you wouldn't think, at 20, 30 yards that they could beat that arrow, but they do.
Yeah.
Then other times they just kind of stand there and you shoot the arrow and it goes through them and they just kind of stand there and look. And I know a buddy of mine, he said he had a doe come in and it just stood there after he shot, and then the buck comes in, he shoots and just stands there, and then they both start walking off, and they start wobbling down, and he had them both.
Yep.
Fortunately, he had 2 tags, so but it just went. It must have been just that perfect shot that didn't hit any bone or nothing. It just went right through the vitals and missed all the bones, and of course the buck probably had other things on his mind, but
yeah. Yeah, I've seen that with a buck. I had a doe I shot one year that, I ended up hitting her right through the heart, and she literally took one bound. Like, as soon as it hit her, she kind of jumped, kicked, and then stood there looking back, trying to figure out what happened, and then just fell over.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some weird things going on, and hunting buddy of mine, he was telling me he was on this trail, and this deer comes walking down the trail, stops just before the shooting lane. So now he's at full draw. The deer runs for 3 steps through the shooting lane and continues walking. Like, no, Randy, you're telling me stories. It's like you gotta be telling me a story. But it's kind of weird how things like that'll happen. I know I wasn't telling a story, but it just kind of seems like, that can't be true. But they stop before the one zone you have to shoot in, and then run through it and continue walking. It
No,
was weird when he said that story. It's like, yeah, okay.
it's like, hunting in different areas. Like we invited a buddy of ours up from Arizona, and he's hunted elk down there, killed elk, and we try to tell him, like, these elk here in Colorado, they're a lot more pressured. So you got to really listen to him. And he kept wanting to overcall and ran a couple bulls off that we had coming in because we got to get more aggressive. I'm like, dude, no. They don't want to fight. You could tell the way he's bugling. He'd more answer the cow calls than the bugles, and then we got set up. But I actually had a bull storming in. It's kind of that type of situation. He on a dead run coming, and I'm all tucked in, and I need him to take 3 more steps into the shooting lane, and I'm coming to full draw, and he just skids to a stop, whirls, gone. And I'm like, what the heck? Can't see me, he can't smell me. So I lean out from where I am. I look back, and he's sitting on one knee beside a tree, right at the edge of where it like went. So he was silhouetted, and he's like, "Well, I figured that they wouldn't care. Like you can be in the wide open." I'm like, "Not here. These elk know something doesn't look right, and if something don't look right, they're gone." And literally what it was, he just skidded to a stop just before he hit my shooting lane, and then gone.
Yeah, that's something that you don't think about different areas. And
Yeah,
I know there's different places that go, like this public property goes used to hunt that. They're used to people all the time. It's no big deal to have people out there, so they're not really afraid of the people. They do learn really quick that it's hunting season, but if you do something out of the ordinary, then they're going to do something different. I've been out where I parked on one side, and I was on the other side of the tracks where we had permission to hunt. We could park on that field there. He owned both sides of the track, but the area
yeah.
he gave us the hunt was across tracks. I'm in my tree stand. I could see my truck. The deer walked within 5 feet of the back of my truck. They didn't know. They didn't care. So, it wasn't unusual for them to see a truck in the middle of the field.
Yeah, well, it's like, some of the areas we hunt, it's public ground, but they're also recreation areas. So there's, around the trails and the little roads and stuff, there's always people. So yeah, they'll come right by vehicles, or if you're walking along, they'll just sit there and watch you. Now, the second you stop longer or step off the trail and do something, then they're like, whoa, wait a minute, you're doing something different. It's like, my
Right.
buddy had one, like literally we spotted this buck, and he got out and got set up off the little trail. And the buck just stood there, watched us. He ranged him. This buck just stood there. The second he goes to draw his bow, the buck was like, "Oh, nope," took off. Like,
Yeah, it wasn't usual. I know where I was hunting one time. I think I told this story, a couple times ago, but this lady used to walk the old tracks every day. So the deer are used to people walking down the tracks. There no tracks are gone. They're just gravel now. So it's a trail. And I'm out hunting, and I'm walking out, and I look over to my right. Here's a deer laid down next to the trail, probably 5-7 yards away. I look over at the deer. It looks at me, and I keep walking. It just stayed there, because I knew if I stopped, it'd be gone. If I tried to come back on it, it'd be gone. I'd have to walk far enough where it just thought I was gone, and then I'd have to come try and sneak back on it. And it was bedded down looking at the trail. So that would have been a hard. I didn't even bother. I just kept going.
Yep.
Like, well, when my time today. It's we've been about 2 hours here now, so I'm sure
correct.
you got things to do, and you're about an hour off of me, so I think it's about 9 o'clock there.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, as I'm in Central Time, you're in Mountain Time. So yeah, it's been really great talking with you. A lot of great stories, and I always like the cool stories, and that's the fun part of this. And for
Exactly.
those are interested, I'm going to put a link in the description for your Facebook page. So if they want to get a hold of you, they can get a hold of you. And then also put a link into the Colorado Outdoor we talked about. So it makes it easier for you to find them. So I'll put those in there, as well as some information on how, if you want to get some help with archery, you can contact me in there. And of course, always join Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, because there's a lot of good archers in there, a lot of instructors, a lot of bow techs. Just get in there and ask your questions. If you have a question, somebody's going to probably know the answer or be willing to help. And, you know, if you look at your form, not sure if it's good, hey, take a video, upload a video. We'll take a look at it. You know, we've done that. I've been an archery instructor since '95, so I've done a lot of teaching.
Oh yeah.
We're glad to help. That's what the group's about. That's why I called it Archery Talk 101, because we want to help the beginners, the new archers, as well as advanced archers. You know, we have anywhere from Olympic archers to, you know, young archers to old archers, even older than I am. Now we got guys that have been shooting in there for 70 years. I've started, you know, in the 60s, you know, shooting my recurve back when there was recurve longbow, wood or fiberglass, wood arrows or wood arrows, and feathers or feathers.
Yep.
you have either solid feathers or shield, you know, or parabolic, you know, or barred feathers, and then either parabolic or shield cut. So you had a little variations in that, but you know, that's where I started was, you know, 25-pound fiberglass recurve and wood arrows and feather fletchings.
Nope.
I still shoot feather fletchings, but I've graduated to compound bow, and I do have a recurve, but I've graduated from 25-pound little bow. It's always fun talking archery. That's why I enjoy doing this podcast, is I get to talk to archers all over the world. You know, we talk to guys like you, and
being an instructor and stuff, it's always, you know, teach people. It's like, you know, I was actually at Cabela's one day. There was a guy in there, and their techs aren't always the greatest. Some of them know what they're doing, but some don't. And he's trying to show this guy how to shoot, and the guy's shooting all over the place. And the tech got called away for something. And I walked up to him, I'm like, hey, change this one thing. It's like, change your grip. I was like, don't grip the full bow. I was like, rotate your wrist, make your knuckles be that staircase off your riser. I was like, hey, just relax that hand. He puts 3 arrows, thump, 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 all touching. He looks at me, he goes, and he looks back at the other guy, he goes, I've been here for half an hour and haven't had an arrow hit the same place yet.
It's all a matter of knowing what to do, and you know, me with, you know, my many years of martial arts, as well as, you know, archery and everything else, I teach a little bit different. I teach kind of a, you know, closed stance, just because of the training I do. And I don't put my knuckles against it. I just let the hand completely relax, you know, going through the meaty part. We talked that many times on the podcast.
Yeah.
But you know, the way I teach, if your grip is wrong, you're going to smack your arm. Yeah. Guaranteed. If you're gripping that bow, you're going to smack your arm because it's in the way. And you know, so
I developed that to teach it with the knuckle thing, just because the kids didn't understand how to not hit their arm. And so I teach them that you rotate that wrist to where, it's only touching, that right in front of your thumb, and that's it. And, you know, just some kids, though, they would want to open their hand and then their fingers up in the way. I'm like, nope. So that's why I started teaching them that real light grip to where it makes that staircase. I was like, you do that and you'll never hit your arm, ever.
Yeah. And it's the proper grip. If you're hitting your arm, either your grip is wrong or your draw link's too long, because that'll force you to extend that arm out there. So, those, you know, asking us, like, you know, some will say, I hit my arm. No, I said, draw link's too long. What? How do you know that? Because you hit your arm. Draw link's too long. You know, and there's a few things that, you know, you learn over the years talking with people, and then I tell them, you know, I found out that in archery you use a wrist link. Well, quit pulling the trigger. What? How do you know I'm doing that? I've been doing this too long. You're pulling the trigger.
That's why I would, you know, both my boys now shoot a thumb, because they kept wanting to pull that trigger. They couldn't just let it squeeze. So I'm like, all right, we're going to a thumb.
Yeah. Well, and those, if you do it wrong, you're going to smack yourself in the mouth all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. If you don't have that in there, that thumb off of that and pull back. And then I put the knurled part. I don't have the knurled part on mine anymore, so I took it off because I don't like it. I put the trigger right here in the seam between the thumb and index finger.
And it's just a flex.
Yeah.
You just flex that
pull
hand.
through.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
if I want to, I can just tighten my fist up and it'll go off, but that's not
Yep.
how I shoot it. I pull through, and as long as you have a grip, now on mine, I can take my thumb and put pressure on the release itself. So I can put a little pressure on it there and it won't fire. I can squeeze more and more, but if I make a fist, it'll fire. But as I pull through, that forces me in that position. That's why I use that when it's not super cold, because otherwise, my glove is basically got the back of my hand is covered and
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of tops of my fingers, but it's open where my thumb is there and my fingers are open. So I can feel the release. Otherwise, if I
Yep.
can't feel the release, I don't know where it's at. And then with one of those, you don't want to not know where it's at. Now I have a Scott wrist strap that I use when it gets cold, because then the only thing I need is, basically my index finger out of the glove.
Yeah.
It's like I have everything else. I can keep it in my pocket, keep it warm. My release hooks to my loop on the string. So I'm reaching down, I'm grabbing this, whatever temperature is, if it's 30 degrees out, that release is 30 degrees. Like I put that in my cold aluminum in my hand, like, that, no. So I go to the other release. And the way I have it set up, it doesn't matter which release I use. It shoots exactly the same.
Yeah. See, I
Because I
can't.
don't,
I've never. I mean, I could work with it, and I know I could get it, but the thumb ones don't really work for me because the way I do my anchor point is I actually put my last knuckle here at the back of my ear, and having it turn like this, it messes with me. It's me totally. It messes with my anchor point, and so that's why I'm like, nah, I'm gonna just stick with my one, just because I have that
right.
set. I know that's perfect set right there.
And that's what I teach, the index knuckle right at the
Yep.
back of the jaw. There's a pocket back there. It's
Yep.
also a pressure point we use in martial arts too. But
It is.
a stimulated point inflicts pain until you stop stimulating it. So it's one of those that is works for, stimulating, but you put your knuckle back there. Well, I have a kisser button I put on, and then my nose and the peep. So I got those three lined up. I don't care what my hand does. So I can use that, or I can use the handheld because my hand changes positions. So depending on which release I have is where I'm anchoring on my jaw. But when I have that one,
Yeah.
I with the headphones on them, those that can't see, I'm wearing headphones because it makes it easier to see or hear. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting tired. So I can't demonstrate the anchor point because the headphones in the way. But yeah, you go through and there's just a lot of things that, all relate to, the different techniques. And basically, you probably thought what works for you, stay with.
Yeah. No, that's just it. Once you find this, what works for you, then you're hitting consistently and you're not, stick with it. Don't mess with things.
Yeah. I've had guys come in. I had one guy come into the shop when I had the shop, and we did, we used to call it super tune, where you go in and you tune everything as well. You
Mhm.
set the third axis on your side, and so you're shooting up or downhill. You're still level all the way through. And it wasn't a day later, he come back and he had made changes to the bow already. Like, okay, you just paid me another $50 on top of a normal tune to do all this extra work, and then you go change something. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Well,
like, okay,
yeah, and we get a lot of people coming out here that are used to hunting the Midwest and they can't shoot up and down hills because last week my business partner in the show, he went back to Kentucky hunting for a while and he missed $2 because he was the opposite. He's used to shooting up and down hill and didn't account for shooting out of a tree stand because when you're shooting out of a tree stand, it's different versus even though the angles are the same. When you're out of the tree stand, you don't have the gravity. Whereas when you're shooting up and downhill, you actually hold opposite. So, like, if you're shooting uphill here, you want to aim low because your arrow will go high. Whereas shooting downhill, you aim really low because your arrow, or the other way, when you're shooting downhill, you aim low because your arrow flies so much higher. Versus uphill, you got to aim high because it'll pull down and go low. Whereas out of a tree stand, you don't have that. It's, you just got to make sure your angle of exit is right. Whereas, like I said, I've had here where if you put on shooting downhill, and if it's a 30-yard shot and you put your 30-yard pin dead on, there's a good chance you shoot over that animal. You
right.
actually have to That's why, like the rangefinder I use, it actually gives you you have to know the math, but it gives you the percent of angle. And so you know how much to take off of it. Some of them will give you and mine will do that too. It'll calculate then what the actual shot yardage is versus the actual straight range, because it's totally different. Like whereas shooting out of tree stand, that distance doesn't change. You just got to make sure your angle of exit is good. And that's it. He kept shooting high because he would think he shot really low. The first buck he did, he thought his bow was off because he held right at the armpit and just glanced off the rib cage and went in the ground. I'm like, yeah, it's not like shooting downhill where it's going to end up dead center. You got to put that arrow where you want to hit it.
Well, the math behind that is actually very simple. You know, all construction guys know what a 3-4-5 triangle is. So if you go out 3 units, up 4 units, the distance between those 2 points is 5. So gravity only works in the horizontal position distance. It doesn't care how much it travels vertically. It only cares how much it travels horizontally. So if you're in a tree stand, say you're in a tree stand 20 feet up on top of a hill that's there. Now your trail, if you're looking straight, like take a trail and go straight up, so you're horizontal, and they say that's 20 yards.
Right.
But when you look at the deer, the size of the deer, and straight line, if you use your rangefinder without that angle, it says it's 50 yards. You know, and you're, let's say the yard, well, just to make it match the 3-4-5. So it's 30 yards to the trail. You're 40 yards up from where the ground level of the trail is. Your rangefinder, or you're going to say it's 50 yards. You got to shoot it for 30 because gravity only cares how much horizontal space it works. The same thing going uphill. So I'm here at the bottom of the hill, and I go straight up to where the deer is, and it's 30 yards over, and now then I'm at the ground. So now I'm up 40 over 30, and now my distance is 50. So if I shoot it for 50, I'm over it. So I have to shoot it for the horizontal distance, so 30. And that's where all this comes in. Just by your rangefinder angle in it and get used to what those are. What I do when I'm rangefinding, I'm normally rangefinding down. I don't do a lot of uphill because I'm normally up higher. I will look at the trail. I'll find a tree on the trail and go straight up. Now I'm judging the distance to that tree horizontally. And I did that on one trail. I said, okay, that tree that's on that trail looks to be 20 yards. So I know that tree is 20 yards horizontally from me. And a deer come walking down that trail. The size of that deer told me it was a 50-yard shot because of the size of the deer. That's what it looked like. It was a 50-yard distance because it was pretty much there. Well, I shot it for 20 because I knew that trail was 20 yards horizontally, and I got the deer.
Yep.
So that's the part that, up and downhill, you get compensated. It's like when you realize that gravity only works horizontal distance, not your vertical distance. That's when that'll kind of click, and you say, okay, the trail's only 20 yards away, but this looks like it's a 30-yard shot or 50-yard shot. Same thing going up, which I don't do a lot of up judging, so I don't have a real scheme on how to judge the distance over. Going
you end
up
up
the
having
hill.
to shoot going uphill. You shoot them for a little farther. So if they're only a 30-yard, but it's straight up, you're actually going to shoot it for like 40 because of the uphill pull that pulls down on the arrow. You're going to need that little extra.
Yeah, because it's going to work over that distance. That's where a lot of your hills are probably pretty steep.
They are.
What it's so steep that it's going to look like it's completely different because now you've got that distance up to it and then over, and that changes your angles too. So I don't do a lot of uphill shooting, so I'm not good at figuring out the easiest way to judge those. But I now have a rangefinder that tells me, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
If I'm like you, I'd have my rangefinder with me, and if I'm doing the shooting, have somebody with me, it's like, okay, that is, shoot that one for 20 yards or 30 yards or whatever it is. And, if I'm by myself, then I'm gonna, as I'm going there, range different spots and see, if you're sitting there waiting, range different spots that they could come in. So, that, okay, that tree is a 30-yard shot. That's a 40 to 50. And,
Right.
I've even
Right,
taken
yeah.
and putting flags out,
Yeah.
in fields. Because like, I don't know how place this. So, I had a 30-foot long rope and I had a loop on the end of it and I'd hook it on the peg, bottom of the tree and go up, mark. Okay, 10 yards. Take it off of there, from there. Okay, 20 yards, 30 yards. Okay, now I know, and I put a flag. So I know, okay, that's 20, 30, 40.
Yep.
So now I don't. I get a little bit better at judging them, but it's always nice to know how far to shoot them for.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah, it was good talking with you. Glad to be on.
Yeah, nice having you on, and I'm sure we'll talk again some other time. And it's been great talking with you, and I do appreciate all your stories and you being on the podcast. And I know we'll talk to you later, and we'll catch you on the next one. Make sure you stay tuned for the next one that comes out. We always got exciting guests on the show, whether in the United States or outside the United States. It's always a great time talking to you guys.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, night. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been hosting on Archery Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.